Leela Viss here, and I want to give you some ideas on how you could use connect the dots over Zoom lessons in a private or a group setting. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll show you the actual resource and walk you through some ideas that I had. Here's the first page, connect the dots, and then gives you a lot of instructions on how you want to explain things to your students and then the takeaways that you want to aim for with this resource. So I'm not going to go into all of the details there, but I want to just give you some ideas that, of course, I was expecting to use this in a group setting in person with students in the same room, and that's just not going to happen. One of the things that I love to do with students is to use paper plates, and we do a paper plate dance. And so I was suggesting, find a fun Trans-Siberian Orchestra's Carol of the Bells and do a paper plate dance. Now, maybe that can still happen. You can share your sound from your computer and then they can dance with the paper plates. Maybe you can just echo some fun things, but the paper plates do come in handy and most people have these at home. So hopefully each of your students can have one. But what I like to do with these is explain the relationship between note values with them. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here just for a second so you can see what I have here. Now right now I drew a whole note on here, and so you could ask your students to draw a whole note on on one of their paper plates, because they'll have two, and the other one they'll have to cut, and then they will cut one in half and they can mark it with a half note. It's weird doing it backwards like this. And then you cut it again and it's a quarter note. And then you cut it in half again and you get an eighth note. And those are all things that you can use leading questions to help them discover these different things. And you could even go down to a 16th note, which would be a good idea because you're going to be talking a lot about dotted notes. Then I like to emphasize, how strange this whole system is, because we call this a whole note. And that makes sense. If this is a whole note, then it's going to last for 4. So if we cut the 4 in half, then we get a half note, which is for 2 beats. But now what gets confusing is the fact that an eighth note is a half of a beat, but a half note is called a half note. So this is a good time to explain some of those things, and I think the paper plate demonstrates that probably better than anything else. So yes, I don't know how you can accommodate the paper plate dance, but I'd love to hear your ideas. So I'm going to share my screen again so that I can go back to the resource, because there's some things that I think you could use quite nicely online. Now, I wanted students to feel things in 3/4 and 4/4. So I ask or assign or give you examples of things that you can do within this. And one of them is to feel 3/4 is to do a knees, clap, friends, knees, clap, friends. Well, now their friends may not be in the same room. You could always do a knees, clap, screen, knees, clap, screen, something fun like that. So you can always change that up just a little bit. Or knees, clap, screen, clap, knees, clap, screen, clap. 4/4 time. And then I've got one for 6/8, knees, clap, clap, friends, clap, clap, knees, clap, clap, screen, clap. Up to you, but it's just a fun way for them to, have a little motion over Zoom and have some fun and experience those different time signatures. Now, the point of Connect the Dots is all about reviewing dotted notes. And so when you go and think about, a half note and we add a dot to it, well, the dot always adds half of the value. And that's what a paper plate just comes in so handy, because what's half of a half note? It's a quarter note. So how many beats is a dotted half note? It's 3. And that's the secret behind a dot. It reminds the students to think about 3 instead of just 2. Now, let me just move forward a little bit here, and you can see that I give a lot of different ideas on other resources. I have heard that Rhythm on a Roll works really well online. I have not used it myself, but that's another game that I have at leelaviss.com that uses some dice. It works really well. And then I've got some other things that concerning or that are dedicated to rhythm that you might be interested in. But here's what's kind of fun about Connect the Dots, this resource, is I connected it to carols. There's so many Christmas carols that have dotted notes in them. In fact, they wouldn't be the same without dotted notes, and you'll hear in just a minute. But this is a fun activity that you could do online, is just go ahead and play all these different tunes and see if they can guess the tunes. Now, I've got little pictures here, but if I do recognize that as joy to the world. Which picture does that match? Aha, goes over to the world over there. So you could circle it. You could have students print these off and then play them at home, or you could just use a screen like this and share your screen and use this resource like that as well. So that's kind of a fun listening exercise. And then I also have a more advanced version where you can drill more advanced students to listen to the tunes and then have them decide, was that major or minor, and try and guess the time signature. So that's a fun way to, up the level just a little bit. And you can see all the different tunes that I have there in the pictures. Now, this is the heart of this resource right here, is this dot-to-dot rhythm chart. And here's how I imagine using this in a group setting online or even in private lessons. So first of all, every beat has two parts, an on and the off. So that off is that and. And then I've divided every beat into little columns like that. So what you could do is, before your students see this, you could cover it up with a rectangle and then have them, if they have this, a blank piece of paper, have them chart out, when do I play? I play on the 1, that first box, and then I don't play until box 4 on the and of 2, and so forth. So they could write in the dots for those rhythms, or clear that. You could also cover up the bottom like that and then have them decide what that notation is. Let's see, that'd be 1 and 2. Ooh, that's a dotted quarter note because it's worth 3 of those boxes, and then there's that eighth note to follow, and then quarter, quarter. So that could be a fun way to drill rhythms. And I also have in this packet something else right here where there's just empty ones, and you can do whatever you want to with those. And notice they have to guess the time signature, and I also have them in 6/8 time as well. Then here's some fun things to do as well. Here's dotted Christmas Carol tunes. So here's Joy to the World. Notice it also has the chord symbols. So they could play practice reading their chord symbols and maybe play just a simple left-hand fifth. You could assign that to them for the week. But then what's interesting is there's a dotless version as well. And have them read that and notice how undecorated it sounds without the dots. And here's another fun listening game is, which measure did I not add the dots? It was measure 3. So a lot of fun things that you could do just with those carols. So yeah, I've got them all written out with the dots and without, and with the chord symbols. And then one other thing that could be a neat assignment for you to do during a group session is, these are just the rhythms. You could just clap the rhythms, or let's see, I'm looking at line 1, which rhythm did I clap? Or 1, 2, 3, 4. Counting aloud, getting them used to their counting skills, all that kind of stuff. So that would be a fun way to use this. But you can also assign them to create a melody in the right hand while the left hand plays the chord symbols. So right now I'm just going to play C in my right hand, and then I'm going to play an open fifth in my left hand for the chord symbol. So it will sound like this. First, you need to just give them just little easy assignments, and then you can ask, well, hey, would you like more than 1 note? How about 2 or maybe 3? And just use C, D, and E. So I'm going to use C, D, and E in my right hand and a fifth in my left hand. And now I'm going to choose what notes I want to play using that rhythm, A Joy to the World. Oops. Change the rhythm to just a little bit. And guess what? That's going to happen all the time. And that's exactly what you want, is you're giving all these boundaries for students to follow. And pretty soon they're going to go beyond those boundaries and cross over them. And that's when they become their creative selves. And here's one other thing, how dotless notes become dotted. I kind of had fun exploring this idea, but first of all, we divide notes and we subdivide and then we make them unequal and all that kind of stuff. So maybe this would be helpful as you explain the idea of dotted notes to your students. So there's a quick overview of Connect the Dots, and hopefully you may find this resource helpful during these online lessons during these holidays. All right, take care.